Hello, everybody. All right. So, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. As you
Right.
know, this is my last night in my place here.
Your last night's tonight. So what?
Yeah.
You basically have all your extra stuff in the warehouse already, and
No. My stuff is going to be being moved tomorrow, and then we'll be my stuff for storage, and then we'll be moving everything else somewhere else. I don't know where yet.
hmm. Well, just as a reminder for those who are here, if you can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything we talk about tonight grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. Rick, if you wanna send, and I should have started saying this a couple weeks ago, but if you want to start sending the link to Dillard if he'd like to join us, um, he's more than
Uh
welcome to too.
Metal says on the chat, dinner is running late. I might be there in a bit though. Okay.
All
Cool,
right.
cool, cool.
Well, I just hope you will come in here because there's something that one of the things I did want to talk about tonight that you'd probably be more knowledgeable of, in regards to the Bleach Thousand Year Blood War voice acting situation. So hopefully you'll get in here soon. Hopefully Tim will be here soon. Um, but anyways, we're gonna give people a chance to come in before we get started. There are a number of things, you know,
Yeah.
in my head. Um, I do have a and again, if you guys can like and share the screen, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to get. I do thank those who've already liked. Also, if anything we talk about tonight grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. Well, I guess what I'll do, Rick, you want to? Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the chat and talk about any projects you're working on? If you want, you can share links or anything like that.
Well, I am Rick Piper of Cross Comics. Not really. Well, I'm working on something, but I'm not right now because a couple weeks ago, well, more than a couple weeks ago, my external hard drive fell
Hmm.
off the top of my computer, and well, it bumped. And right now, I'm unable to access it. So on Black Friday, I'm planning on hopefully buying a new hard drive, a new external hard drive. And then I found a site online that will should allow me to recover the data or data, however you want to say it, for
Hmm.
about $100 for the month.
Hmm.
So hopefully, I'm going to be able to recover my data, and it's not going to be a waste of time trying to do that.
Hmm. Yeah. So.
But if not, no, well, no matter what, I'm actually thinking about redoing the way I was doing things, and about having 3 books in one campaign. I think for December, sometime December, I'm going to start up a GoFundMe, not a GoFundMe, a Fund My Comic for Canadian Shield 3,
Hmm.
and hopefully get that funded. Well, funding it, I don't think is going to be the problem, but
Yeah,
getting a decent amount of money.
you and Tim are really starting to get your stuff out there more now. He's up to issue 6. You're up to issue 3 on Canadian Shield, but you've also got Snowdrift going on, and you have
Oh
your
no,
version of the Flame as well, right?
yeah. And actually, you're thinking of Chris. Chris is up to issue 6 with
Oh, the
Cyclopean.
Greg Cyclopean, yeah.
Um,
I thought no, that's right, because Tim's actually only up. He's through 3, and he's working on 4
Yeah,
right now.
well, he's got technically 4 issues out, 0 through 3, and he is working on an ash can as well. That I'm not sure when that's going to be coming out exactly. And he's also starting to work on number 4.
Yeah. Hmm.
So
So for those, if you want to share this, I don't know if you'd want to share, but would you like to Would you like to share? Give everybody an update on your, I guess, living situation. What's been going on with your life wise.
well, tomorrow, as we were just saying, I was just saying, I'm going to be moving all my stuff into storage, and then whatever can't fit, we're either donating it or storing it somewhere else than the main stuff that I've been trying to sell on Facebook Marketplace. And I'm going to be staying with my cousin as long as I can. I don't know how long that will be. Hopefully, it'll be long enough to get myself a job and make sure it's permanent, and then get myself my own residence.
Hmm.
And then I'm gonna have to move everything in there.
Yeah. Anyways, so at least for this week, you're basically finishing up. So chances are, then you probably won't be doing your chill stream on Tuesday night, right?
No, there's a good chance I won't, because my cousin's place is a little bit of a disaster area. So we're gonna do a little bit of cleanup, rearrangement to figure out where I could, even set up at this point.
Okay. But you still should be good for the 17th, right?
Yeah, hopefully, hopefully everything will be straightened up and I will figure a way out. Worst case scenario, like she has internet, so I've got my phone. I'll have internet access to the internet through there. So worst case scenario, like I said, on I think I was saying on what day? On about the 12th of November.
Mm-hmm.
I should know whether I'll be up and running for that for the 17th for you.
All right, that's good. Hopefully,
And I can,
everything will work out and all that.
yeah, I'm hoping to be up and running way before then because I got to get my resume together and all that to start looking for a job and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that Chris and Diana are online. I just would hope they would have dropped by, but they were on RJ's show the other night.
Ah, well, that's good.
Yeah,
I did not know that though.
Yeah, I think it was on Tuesday.
I did not know that. Oh, well, that's good that they were.
Metal's here. Hey, Metal.
Hey.
Well, Metal, now that you're here, you want to basically introduce, do your intro, share any links, and talk about any projects you're doing, anything like that?
Sure. Hi, I'm the Metal, and I'm currently eating chicken and potatoes covered in cheese.
That sounds good. So that's your current project, chicken and potatoes.
Yes, my current project is eating dinner. But people can check out most of my stuff at xdynamuschaos.com if they want.
And this is the link right here, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So now we have 3 of us in here. So now we can start getting some good conversations going. Rick, here's another question I wanted to ask you. Do you guys celebrate Halloween up in Canada, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, well, you kind of I think you already mentioned what you were doing for Halloween. You're pretty much finishing up your move, basically.
Well, like I said, everything should be moved tomorrow, so it will be done. But I'll be done this too. I'm not sure whether I'll be coming back after everything's moved to, wash down the walls, make sure everything's clean and tidy, all that sort of stuff. Or whether I'll do that.
Moving into that place right away, or are they still?
I don't think anybody's coming in right away, but I want to leave it as clean as I can.
That's respectable.
We came in, it was clean and all that, so I just want to be, and get, like it probably not going to really affect me, but although it doesn't matter about affecting my mom, but I still want to, leave it in a good position, because,
Right.
To honor my mom.
Right. And I know I'll be doing my show, and I'm guessing you'll be doing your show too, right, Metal? On Halloween?
On Halloween? Yeah, I have it scheduled, assuming, actually that one, we had to cancel yesterday because Marsupial, very last second, came down pretty ill. Hopefully that'll be resolved by then, but if not, I'll slap somebody else on there. It was just really hard to find a replacement with how late
came down ill. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Well, because again, this is a standing order, pretty much, or standing request. If you want to share the link with him, if he wants to join us, he's more than welcome to as well. I just told, and that's kind of a standing issue with you as well, Rick. If Dillard's available and he wants to come hang out, he's more than welcome to. So you can share the link with him, just so you guys know. Just so we can see if we can get a few more people in here,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Anyways, so now that we're looking at, I guess, ahead to this year's Halloween, let's talk a little bit about past Halloweens. Do you guys have any any memories you'd like to share of Halloween's past? Maybe a favorite Halloween special you guys liked, or movie, or just adventures in trick or treating, what have you?
I remember for me, a lot of my Halloweens were obviously going out on Halloween. I'd go out with my mom in the neighborhood that she grew up in,
Mm-hmm.
and she'd stop in at one of her old neighbors' place and chat for a bit while I went around that neighborhood doing things, and then end up back at that place. I forget what the lady's name was, but
Basically, it sounds like your mother took you to her old neighborhood to go trick or treating, right?
Yeah. It was a neighborhood she trusted and all that. So, having grown up there herself, and some of the old neighbors were there, and it wasn't too far away from my grandparents either. So after we'd finish up, we'd probably go over to my grandparents, and then they'd give us a ride back home. Which
did you? Were there any like Halloween specials, like cartoons or movies that you watched? Or
yeah, I probably watched whatever cartoons were on at the time. I probably watched their Halloween specials when they came on. Of course, I watched the Charlie Brown one.
That's my favorite one.
It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. That's probably the one people remember.
That's the one that I think I remember seeing every year. I'm not sure whether there was any other ones that I've seen every year. So, that would
I just
probably
like the fact that Charlie just kept getting a rock because of how bad his outfit was.
Yeah, I just think that's mean and nasty of all his neighbors to give him a rock.
It's such a good bit though, right? Because it just runs over and over. It's like, I got a Snickers, I got a peppermint, I got a rock.
It's like they were prepared for Charlie Brown.
Charlie always had kind of a hard luck case, because you also had, of course, Lucy would sit there and set up the football for him to kick, only to swipe it away at the last second.
Yeah.
So.
I'm not sure whether there was any other major Halloween specials. Yeah, like Ghostbusters would have theirs. Smurfs or whatever. A lot of the TV shows of the time would have.
Yeah, I think
one year would have a Halloween special.
I think much like some of the fare of the 70s and 80s for the Christmas specials. I think it's a Great Pumpkin. Charlie Brown was probably the main Halloween special everybody probably remembers. I mean, there were some other movies that came out. There were some more live action movies that came out either on TV or like The Nightmare Before Christmas, Halloween Town from Disney Channel,
Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus, yeah.
Yeah, but
one of my favorites.
Eastwick
is the Jack Skellington one. Is that a Christmas
Nightmare Before
movie?
Christmas?
Is that
It starts on Halloween, it ends on Christmas. And then The Addams Family starts on Christmas and ends on Halloween, so you can just watch both movies back to back forever.
Yeah. Yeah. The Addams Family. Yeah, the Addams Family and the Munsters, a couple classic.
We actually just watched The Addams Family on in the Vomitorium Discord on Thursday when we do our movie nights.
I was wondering about that on I think Tuesday, whether you've been doing them or not since.
Oh, yeah, every Thursday.
Okay,
one
it'll be up and running, but what's this Thursday?
Oh, well, since we're moving out of Spooky Month and into the month that Thanksgiving is for us here in America, I'm making it American History Month. So the next movie is Tombstone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can't say I've ever seen that.
You've mentioned Thanksgiving. You've mentioned Thanksgiving there, Metal, because I was just reminded of the Brady Bunch episode where Greg had to do that film on Thanksgiving and got the whole family involved. That was something that just happened across my mind there.
Well, it's funny is that Halloween, if you go back far enough, which is pronounced Samhain in Irish, but Samhain is originally a Thanksgiving festival.
Yeah.
Well,
I told you too. I had heard a little bit about Samhain only because I didn't even know about Samhain until this past month because yesterday, the National Wrestling Alliance, owned by Billy Corgan now, just had their Samhain pay-per-view yesterday from the Temple of Life in Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, nice.
So,
see, as somebody of heavy Irish descent, we actually celebrate that. So while we would still do the trick or treating or everything, we would have a small meal, and specifically we'd have like something with potatoes, just because we all love potatoes. So we'd have like potato pancakes or something, and then we'd have our feast before going out and getting all of our treats.
Yeah.
Actually,
and of course Halloween originated, I believe, over in Europe.
Yes, it was a cultic holiday.
Yeah. I was going to say maybe not quite like we know it today, but
yeah. So, well, yeah. I mean, let me see. Well, Halloween translated as All Hallows Eve, as it were. I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting history because Samhain had been around for a really, really long time in the old Celtic tradition, which is a stem of the South German pagan traditions that have branched off into its own thing. And when it became Catholicized, right, they always try to keep people's traditions, but they try to make it Christian appropriate. Like they transfer it because it was a good way to keep people from revolting. And they tried to make it All Saints Night for a really long time, but it did not stick. Right. And a lot of people just continued to celebrate Samhain. Eventually, though, when people came back or came over to America, a lot of the Irish Catholics picked that back up, and instead of it being All Saints Night, it became All Hallows Eve, right?
Yeah.
And
But
that
isn't,
eventually became Halloween as we know it now.
yeah.
And then
But
everybody
isn't
picked
All
it back up
Saints
later.
Night the night before now?
Give or take, like some people do it as 2 different days, some people don't, right? But the modern Halloween tradition actually started here in the States, and then retroactively went everywhere else afterwards. But you can trace it back to Samhain in Ireland.
The way you're describing the way they changed Halloween, it almost sounds like the reverse of what they did with Christmas, right? Because Christmas was, of course, the birth of Jesus, and that was what it was initially known for. And again, I think it happened in Europe, when you started, adding certain, at least in Eastern European, you added, some of the lore of like Chris Ringle, Saint Christopher, all that.
Well, no, it's actually almost the same thing, right? Because prior to that, there wasn't a celebration of Christ's birth in the winter. If anybody celebrated, they would celebrate it right around Passover, because for a long time they thought that he died around when he was born, like around the same time of the year. But
Yeah.
then the Catholic Church basically took over the holiday of Yule, which was a Nordic/pagan holiday, like both of North and South Germany celebrated it. And Yule was basically just became the new celebration of Christ's birth. They kind of moved the celebration over.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
Yeah, because it's said that he lived 33 and a half years.
So, all right. Well, I wanted to touch upon that, of course, with us just being a few days away from Halloween. There, but figured, just touch up on that a little bit. Let's see now. So on to some other stuff I wanted to bring up, of course. And one of the things I wanted to bring up with you here, Metal, since of course you're another person who kind of follows anime and the dub news and all that. So, as you probably heard, right? You know how a lot of people over the past few years have been like saying, "Oh, when we cast voice actors, we should cast people who actually look like the character." Right?
Is this the Wendy Lee situation or the Pro ZD situation?
Well, I know they. Well, I'm focusing more on the Wendy Lee Inari Kiona situation.
Okay, because there was 2 of these that came up pretty recently.
That, basically, yes. Were you about to say something more on that, or?
No, I was just saying that there was 2 different situations that happened really recently, so I wanted to know which one you were focusing on.
Yeah, I'm focusing more on the Wendy Lee. Basically, they are kind of connected because it's kind of like, okay, in the Pro ZD one, the guy is now, it's kind of like you reap what you sow, right? Because now he can't get any other roles other than, it's kind of funny because when I was watching There Are Darks video on it earlier today, right? She was pointing out that what these people really want is to basically for all the quote unquote minorities to have any shot at any role they want, and for whites to just be restricted to white roles only. That's really
but you know what? That's going to backfire a lot because of the way people
it's already backfiring.
Yeah, but it's also specifically politically the way people see the roles, right? Because when you treat quote unquote white people as the majority, right? Well, not only are there a lot of white roles to come up, but that doesn't restrict a white person from any white roles, regardless of their background, whether the person comes from like Italy, Ireland, Norway, because they just see them all blatantly as white people, so they can have any role without caring. But when you start getting into what people call minorities, then they start specifically worrying about the individual thing they may or not be. Not so much with Black people because of the history of Black Americans, but like everybody else suffers from this. So like you can't just broadly have a Latino role. You have to start picking up people who have that different heritage from like Mexico or Guatemala or whatever. Or like you can't just broadly have an Asian role. Like Japanese people have to play Japanese people, Chinese people have to play Chinese people, and the knife just starts cutting thinner and thinner for basically everyone. Except for white Americans can just play every white role.
Now, we just touched on that because the one I wanted to focus on. Now, it's kind of funny. I hadn't even really heard anything about the situation with Wendy Lee and Inari Quiones until actually it was Kem, the guy Kem you've seen come in here. He'll start asking me random questions about voice actors and all that.
Hey, JR.
Yeah, I just saw that too. Hey, JR. Sorry we didn't hit you right away. I just saw that just now. So
yeah,
hail
I don't
Lord
think it's been there long.
Hail Princess Xena. All right. So now this basically now I didn't hear too much about it. And I've been kind of following it a little bit closer recently. I know Hero Hay mentioned it a little bit, and then so this is basically what happened. Okay. Wendy Lee was the one who originally voiced Yoichi, the female human.
Yes, Yoroichi.
Yoichi from Bleach. Okay, she was and then I guess when they decided to cast for 1,000-Year Blood War arc, and one of the other stories that came out of this too was Jameson Price had actually decided to step down from his role as Chad, because he wasn't, he wasn't
Hispanic
Mexican or part Mexican.
Yeah.
Because Chad, I guess, is half Mexican, half Japanese.
So which one does he get to play? Hispanic or Japanese or both? Or can he only play roles that are half Mexican, half Japanese?
Well, Jameson Price is white, so he can't play either of them.
Right.
By their current logic. That's why he stepped down.
Right. Oh,
it's a shame. He's such a great voice actor.
Yeah. I finished Melvin 2. Did I need 3? I'm not sure. Well, none of us can answer that because
did you read 3? I don't know either, but the only way to tell is to start to read it. And,
I mean, that's something you'd want to ask Tim there, JR, but Tim's not here yet.
Oh no. He's just saying, did I read 3? Did I read 3? Well, I don't know whether you read 3, but
if
start
you
reading.
Put the wrong word. If this is an error in syntax and you meant, do I read 3? Well, that also depends on how well you enjoyed Melvin 2.
Yeah, well, did he read number 1 as well?
Well, I know he read number 1 because he mentioned it the other night that he read number 1 when Tim and I were doing the historical comic retrospect.
And a quick question, completely off topic. Have you went over Canadian Shield 3 yet, Metal?
I started. I've chipped away at it. I've just been kind of busy.
Uh-huh.
All right. So anyways, getting back to what I was just mentioning. So apparently when they decided to cast for 1,000-Year Blood War, what apparently now they're linking this to Studiopolis. That's the studio that does the recording, but of course the company would have been Viz Media, who would have been doing the casting and all that. But apparently, according to at least the article, I just kind of read it earlier on Anime News Network. Apparently, there was they were claiming there was some kind of scheduling conflict or whatever that prevented Wendy Lee from reprising, because they said because according to the press release or whatever, or the post, they claimed that they did want to try to maintain the original cast, but then they couldn't, due to certain scheduling conflicts. And so they ended up giving the role of Yoichi to Inari. I guess I don't know if that's how exactly you pronounce name, or Anairis. So, um,
Uh,
but then I guess there was some significant backlash over it, right? Such backlash that they decided to they made an announcement like last week, I guess, the 25th, where Anari was the one who initially announced it, that she was no longer voicing Yoichi, and they decided to recast Wendy Lee. One of the points that Vera Dark was making about it is like, which was probably part of the initial outrage, was how do you replace how dare you replace one of the most well-known and beloved voice actresses of of the scene, right? Because Wendy Lee's been doing voice acting for since back in the 80s, I believe.
She's been in like everything. One of her other most famous roles is probably as Faye Valentine from Cowboy Bebop.
Right.
Yeah. I like Wendy.
I think
she's
on Naruto as well. Like she was Moegi for one. So.
Well, she's a very accomplished person in general. She is a Viz representative, so a lot of times she is involved with the negotiations between studios for what dubs get done and stuff. And that's also, she ends up on a lot of the shows that she does those negotiations for.
Right. Well, and also, aside from her voice acting work, she's also had a hand in voice directing too. So,
JR says, I can't remember if I read 3, but I liked 2. Well, so start reading number 3 again, and if you feel that you've read it, you can either continue or, stop.
Yeah. So basically, though, yeah, it's kind of funny because when I was watching, I also made a comment earlier because they were also kind of talking about, again, in the element of typecasting, like, when you're talking about, because I think Vera had pointed out that she knew of a bunch of women who did, boy voices, and some men who did women voices, right? And I had pointed out in the comment that historically, women have always kind of done like prepubescent boy characters, as well as maybe some of the higher pitched animal voice, like going back to the golden age of animation. You had people like Sarah Bernard, June Foray, Bede Benaderet, Grace Stafford, who was Woody Woodpecker's voice from 1950 to 1972. Did that well into her 60s, mind you.
Yeah, and there's also an opposite phenomenon. Usually it's not main characters, it's background characters, but when you get really older, like elderly women who have croaky voices, sometimes they'll just have one of the guys come in and do that voice real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know Vic himself has done Vic Mignogna has done a couple of female voices, or even like femme-like character voices. I know, like during Naruto, right? One of the characters, I think it was Fuen, was the name of the character, which is Fuen was either a woman or like a femme-like guy.
Yeah, they call them
during one of the it was during like one of the filler arcs. It was like so it was it was when they initially met Chiku or Chiruku or whatever the guy's name was. But
I mean, if you want to go even further back, historically in Japanese theater, all roles were played by men.
Right.
Yeah.
But isn't that No Theater? NOH?
Yeah. But we even did similar things too. It was
Well,
If you
in
go
Greek
to
it
England,
happened in Greek culture
in
too.
Greek culture, yeah. Well, even in English culture, prior to around Shakespeare's time, where he was one of the first people to start bringing some women into his troupe because they were doing more stuff for the commoner. Most theaters in like Europe and most of the world, it was men were just portraying all roles.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even in some of Shakespeare's, there were still men. Like half the time, Juliet was played by a guy.
Actually,
I feel sorry for.
it kind of reminds me because does kind of remind me because I've watched the dub of Doki Doki School Hours before, right? Which is an anime. The dub was done by the Ocean Studios crew, the Calgary voice actors and actresses. And of course, in the classroom, came around Culture Festival time, and they decided to do a play. The play being Snow White, and they just had a random draw to see who would play which roles. And Snow White was going to be played by one of the guy characters who happened to be gay and happened to have a crush on the athletic guy in the class who was kind of adult. didn't pick up on anything. But
Yeah. Oh, they did a similar thing in Persona, right? In Persona 4, the character of Teddy, who in the other world was just like this big blue teddy bear guy, when he came into the real world, his mascot costume unzipped, and it turned out that he was like this very effeminate blonde boy. For the school play or whatever, they actually casted him as Alice in Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah. So, anyways,
So you were going to be? Were you actually going to read an article, or are we just talking about this?
well, I will get to that in a moment here, because I obviously want to get this story in as well, just with Metal here because of the
Yeah, well, that's what it meant. Were you going to read this story about the Wendy Lou or Lee?
No, I wasn't.
I think this is mostly just memory.
Read the article. The article was pretty short, but I figured I read it earlier just so I'd have a little bit better idea of the background. But basically, the whole point of it is that you have a lot of these voice actors and actresses. They were like coming out. No, we need to cast people according to their physical description, not the voice, not whether or not their voice fits the character, but they actually fit the physical description of the character. And now it's coming back to, well, in this case, even Wendy admitted that she could have done the role from the get-go, but as Vera pointed out too, with this particular situation, it's like they basically tried to pull we're going to cast these roles anew, to fit our ideology, and they got such a backlash for taking Wendy out of that role that it just they had no choice but to recast Wendy in the role. Now Inari also, I guess, is going to voice Hiyori in that, and she's still voicing Hiyori in that. But yeah. Anyways, why don't you guys talk amongst yourselves for a moment? Because I do need to step away from the computer for a moment. I'll be right back. Gotta go take care of a couple of things real quick. I'll be right back. So why don't you talk to the chat, what have you, and talk to each other. All right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things I find funny about it too is even coming out and trying to I think the whole having to be the race of somebody you voice is kind of just stupid.
Yeah.
Just in general, because it's a voice. I can understand for live action roles. In fact, for live action roles, you want somebody to look like the character. At least I do.
Yeah.
But for a voice, I don't care, because half the time I don't even want to know the voice actor. I don't know how I got into the position that I know of most of these voice actors in the first place. It just happened in my life. But like specifically in Bleach, right? The funny thing is, Yoruichi isn't even supposed to be black, right? She's dark, but she's not supposed to be like, you don't have to cast a black person to play Yoruichi. She's supposed to be like a really dark Asian character, right? kind of like how they get in the tropics south of China, in like South India, or maybe in like for what was it used to be Siam, Thailand, right? How they can get kind of dark there, but her skin is more yellow toned compared to say like Tozen. And the way Tite Kubo does his art, he'll let you know if a character is supposed to be black. Tozen, you can tell, is supposed to be black. Yoruichi, it's like you're stretching. If people are trying to say that too.
Yeah. So you were saying you got about a little bit through it, the script.
Yeah, I just started chipping away at it. Like I said,
Okay.
I've been pretty busy, and it's
Yeah.
not the only editing thing I've had to do recently.
Yeah, like I'm not, I probably won't need anything done to it till the end of November because somebody half approached me for a deal, a somewhat good deal that I might, depending on whether I can get my data back, I might take them up on for Canadian Shield 3. Actually, I might try and lower it because there's included coloring.
I actually did catch, as I had to step away there, that I caught a little bit. But what were you saying just after I left?
Oh, I was saying, like, the funny thing about this whole situation is that Yoruichi isn't even supposed to be like black or black coded, right? Like if you know the character, there is a character in Bleach that is, I guess you would use the term black coded because they're from the spirit world, so they don't necessarily are from any given place in the world, but he's drawn as if he's black, and that is Kaname Tozen, one of the 13 squad captains, right?
Oh, the blind
Tozen
one.
is supposed, well, he was, and he defected with Aizen and everything.
The blind one.
Yes, the blind one. And you can tell that he is supposed to be black the way that Kubo draws him. Kubo lets you know if a character is supposed to be black, right? There's a couple other ones, other like side characters in the real world that you could tell. Yoruichi is kind of supposed to be dark in the way that like some Southeastern Asians are dark,
Right.
Along
Like
the coastline.
She looks more like she might be from one of the islands, like maybe the Philippines or Singapore or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Or Bali or something like that. Yeah, I mean, she looks more like an islander type of dark than,
Yeah, or along the coast, somewhere that would be in the tropics and exposed to a lot of sun. And
right.
JR says, yeah, knowing the actors who portray characters you like is just disappointing.
Well, these days.
Well, just because of the stuff they just try here, but as I was saying earlier too, that it's like it's like in the case of the Wendy Lee. Now I don't know if she actually was one of the ones who actually came out and really got into all this stuff about like whatever
the identity politics.
Yeah. I hadn't seen or heard her say anything.
Oh, no. See, Wendy Lee is like all business. I've never seen her even talk about almost any politic.
Yeah, that's what I get too. Unlike Steve Bloom and Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, they let you know they hate Trump.
Yeah, and I'm sure she, like any person, does have political opinions. She just doesn't let it interfere with business, from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is good.
Well, yeah, you would think that a lot of these other voice actors, might take a lesson from her in doing that, but but whatever, right? And now they get to pay for it. Now they get to pay for it. It's like they're reaping what they sow, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, anyways, let's see. Yeah, we're already to a quarter to the hour here. So why don't we go ahead and move on to the next subject I was going to bring up. There was another topic I was going to bring up. An article I went over this last week, and there was so this article, and I'll try to let me share it here. It's unfortunate about a couple of the oldest comic book stores in LA closing down. So, not that I myself have actually been to them. It looks like I got a message back from Diana. Let me check that real quick. Busy tonight. I will send you a date for December.
Kem here is here, and he says, "What's your favorite 2000 anime?"
I'm gonna have to get some more info. Do you mean anime that specifically dropped in the year 2000, or anime that was throughout the entire aughts?
Uh-huh. Then it says at least. And can you explain what Full Metal Panic is?
I'll do that in a moment. I'm messaging somebody at the moment.
Yeah. Well, does Metal know what Full Metal Panic is?
Hot women and hot mecha.
Well, I know because I actually watched.
We've actually talked about this before. I have the whole box set on DVD.
Yeah. Well, I do too. Including Fumofu, but
And then he says at least Maruro's was still cast as Harui Inaris Quinos.
Kionis, I believe is how you pronounce that last name.
I know I probably butchered all those names, but oh well.
Yeah, let me look specifically which ones came out in the year 2000. It's been a while since I looked. I want to be particular.
Yeah, that's sort of what I think he means. The year 2000. What ones came? Your favorite one that came out in the year 2000? I would have no clue myself.
Well, I don't remember off the top of my head either.
Yeah, well, even if you gave me a list, I probably wouldn't know most of them.
Well, Full Metal Panic was a mecha anime that in which the main character had to guard a high school student who apparently had an innate understanding of their world's mecha technology. From the bad guys basically getting her. So that was the
easy Inuyasha.
And then he asked, "What's your favorite 2001 anime?"
At least Amari was still cast as Hiyori. Hanari Kionis. Well, yeah, 2001. I think that year also had Dot Hack Sign. That was probably.
I love Dot Hack Sign.
Yeah. Can you explain what fairy tale premise is, and is it worth? Well, yes, it is worth watching. It's basically follows the adventure of a fire wizard named Natsu. The premise is basically following him throughout his wizarding career. Being part of the fairy tale guild.
But Hellsing did come out in 2001.
Yeah, I've never watched Hellsing myself, so.
But I'm gonna have to give it to Studio Ghibli's movie Spirited Away, which came out in 2001.
Oh yeah,
which actually just asked what's your favorite anime movie for 2001. There's my answer right there. Spirited Away, such a great movie.
Yeah. So, anyways, now to get to this article here, that and there were some aspects here that kind of grabbed my attention too, just about in terms of our current society and where we're at with all of it.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Elaborate on the Wendy Lee situation. Well, we already just did that a few minutes ago. How if anything, you were the one who brought it to my attention in the first place. Apparently, they had decided to recast her for the role. They initially claimed that there was some kind of scheduling conflict, but there wasn't. They were basically trying to pull the whole, we need to diversify the cast. We need the cast to be who they actually match physically, and it kind of blew up in their face. There was such backlash that they ended up recasting Wendy Lee as the Yorichi. Anyways, trying to get onto this article here because it's one I kind of covered the other day. I'll wait till Rick gets back before we get into this. But Los Angeles' oldest comic shop shut down. Put blame on COVID, Marvel, and DC. So,
I mean, those are some fair things to put blame on.
Yeah. I guess we can. Guess we can go through at least. Let's see. Helsing Unlimited is awesome. I love the footnotes that describe what basic Christian concepts like original sin is. There should be more diversity in anime roles. Well, again, it's more about does the voice fit the character? It's not about matching the physical characteristics of the character. It's about matching the voice. And I nerd gamed when they described the organization of the Ulster Protestant Orange Lodges.
As nerdgasmed. It's like the word orgasm, but like when a nerd just gets too excited.
Yeah. And here comes
Rick.
Rick.
Again, as someone of heavy Irish descent, anytime Ulster gets brought up, I usually have a little excitement too.
All right. So, anyways, I was just waiting for you to get back before we got started on this article, Rick, because there are some things here in this article that I wanted to share with you guys, and just even from my commentary from the other day. So, anyways, Los Angeles' oldest comic shop shut down. Put blame on COVID, Marvel, and DC. Article by John F. Trent, published back on October 24th in the comic section here. So, Los Angeles' oldest comic shops, Jeffrey's Comics and Heidi Ho Comics, which both opened in 1977, so that's like 46 years ago, are shutting down. Basically, they're the same age as Jamie Markey.
Hey, I love the image they use.
Yeah. In a post to Facebook, Jeffrey's Comics announced, quote, Jeffrey Comics and Heidi Ho Comics opened in 1977. We were literally the first comic book stores in Los Angeles. Now, sadly, Jeffrey's and Heidi Ho Comics must close their doors December 31st, 2023, at the end of this year. While the shops are shutting their doors, the business is going to attempt to keep pull lists going for customers. The post explains, quote, our pull service will continue out on. Jeffrey's and Heidi Ho Comics would love to keep our most loyal customers and continue to offer our pull service as a delivery option. So they're going basically from a retail business to like a delivery service, basically.
Yeah, they'll probably have all the comics delivered to their home or whatever.
Yeah,
And then
I'll get into some more of the commentary more as we get more to that, because I have a few things to say about that idea. But quote, Jeffrey Comics pull parties, unsmall quote, will be found at locations around the city, unquote. The business adds, quote, we are also reaching out to coffee houses to offer different times and days for you to stop by and pick up your comics and hang out with your other fellow superfans. Even though Jeffries and Idaho must close their doors, they will live on in this new exciting form where we can all still gather and share our enjoyment together. Which
or
is
they
kind of
hope.
good. Huh?
Or they hope, because they don't know how well this will do. It's an experiment. I hope it succeeds, but they don't know whether it's going to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As for why were you about to say something, Metal?
No, but this does remind me of an idea that I've had for a while, which I thought would be kind of cool, because comic book store locations are failing everywhere in general. Like a lot of them are just shutting down if they haven't transformed into general hobby stores where you can get like D&D or card games or everything else there. But one of the ideas I had is what if somebody took the idea of like a food truck or an ice cream truck and just made themselves like a mobile bookstore, right? And then you could be like the comic book store for your entire area, just driving around. And if somebody calls you up for a delivery, you can literally just pull your whole store over to where they are.
Yeah. I have something similar. Well, we have something in here in Hamilton called the Bookmobile. It's a part of the library where it
Oh,
goes
that's cool.
around. It
Well,
goes around various parts of the city.
Yeah, I think they did mention something like that in this article too. But when we get
I'll
to
be
it.
right back again.
All right. As for why the comic shop is shutting down, an image attached to the Facebook explains, quote, it wasn't one single thing that caused this closure, though COVID was a major contributing factor, unquote. And this is where we're going to get to the point that I had some issues with here. Jeffrey's Comics explained, quote, the shutdowns depleted our savings and grants, which strained us to the breaking point. A year prior to the pandemic, we signed a long-term lease to be closer to the 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica, but COVID left us unable to make the rent. Still, we soldiered on. We moved to a smaller location while eventually finding a subleasee. The location we were legally responsible for. Quote, unfortunately, between payments owed from the pandemic to the loss of our subleasee, we are not in a position to pay our landlord what is now being demanded in full, unquote, the shop explained.
Seems like the landlord's doing this on purpose.
As for Marvel and DC's role, the shop stated, quote, for the first 40 years, Dynamite Comics.
Diamond.
What was that?
It's Diamond Comics.
Oh, Diamond. Yeah, I don't know why I said Dynamite. Diamond Comics was our single service distributor. As they lost the rights to distribute Marvel and DC comics, which was, I think, last year or so.
Yeah, and again, that was also due to the pandemic.
Yeah. What had once become a streamlined process for doing one order and picking up from one location became multiple orders with multiple ways of delivery, with multiple days of releases, unquote. The shop asserted, quote, the powerhouse that used to be, in smaller quotes, New Comics Wednesday, has ceased to be, and with it, a lot of the spending habits of the customer base, unquote. company also noted that costs for their tabletop business had also increased. So they were doing like what you were talking about.
The hobby shop, yeah.
Yeah.
Almost all of them have. Even like my local ones,
Hmm,
most people who go in for either Magic the Gathering cards or they go in for Dungeons and Dragons. A
yeah.
lot of them don't even go to buy the comics.
Yeah. Quote, a large part of our business, tabletop card gaming, has continued to grow more expensive to the retailer as companies seek to find new avenues to sell directly to the customer or through online marketplaces and big box retailers. Now, this again the whole online thing, whole online retail business, the whole idea of sitting at home and waiting for a delivery. This is the kind of the issue. Like the issue I have with this now, mind you, like what we do here, like as I can see you guys on camera here and stuff like that, it's great. It's great for interaction and all that. But ultimately, as human beings, we need to be physically around each other.
Yeah.
And one of the things I really didn't like about the scare tactic, about huddling people into their homes and all that, you know, was that's a way of losing connection. I mean, not that this is totally bad or but ultimately you need to be around other people in order to
You need
grow.
to be around people in real life.
Right.
Yeah, and I agree. And I do think like when people try to blame COVID, which was the catalyst for everything, it really the blame goes on your local government, which like you're in the area, so you know more than anyone how California decided to handle COVID
Right.
versus how like say my state, Texas, decided. Most of our comic stores have not shut down because of COVID. They shut down because of Marvel and DC. Like they can't even add that addendum on there because they were still open and able to do business.
Yeah. Well, except for COVID did because of COVID, Marvel and DC did stop using diamond and all that too.
Mm. Yeah. Well, but I think what Metal is getting at is whereas COVID had a more direct effect on
Yeah.
on California here because of how they handled it, how our how our government handled it, as
Oh
opposed
yeah.
to like Texas, where
I
it still may have
I
had
get.
where it still may have had an indirect effect in terms of how Marvel and DC handled it, and just instead of going through Diamond, they just
Yeah.
handled it more directly.
Yeah. Well, it was a direct indirect because COVID is what prevented even Diamond from doing their whole regular distribution, which had Marvel and DC change the way that they do their distribution.
Hmm.
If I remember it right.
Yeah,
Any
yeah. But
thought?
all I'm saying is COVID was just a catalyst.
Yeah,
Even if you want to say it's a catalyst for all this stuff, the blame still goes on to how each entity decided to respond to that catalyst.
true, true.
Anyway, continuing on here. Quote, one of the most popular card games in the world now sells for less through Amazon than what we have to pay for getting through our distributor.
Oh,
Obviously direct marketing like that does cut down on shipping costs. I mean, I get that, but in addition to specialty product that was never made available to us through wholesale, unquote, the shop noted, quote, simply put, it is an unstable situation for us, and we worry about the retailers that remain, unquote. So, the owner of the stores also indicated he's been suffering from some health issues as well. Jeffrey Patterson II said, quote, I was diagnosed with nerve disorder that causes constant pain and migraines. Now, mind you, as we said earlier, the store was started, 46 years ago. Now, if this guy has been there all that time, you know he's got to be pretty old. Even if he started it at 18, right? He would be 64 now, right? So health issues are going to start creeping in. The guy's got to be pretty old. That's one of the things I was noting here as well. But let's see. I regularly lose vision in one eye, randomly vomit uncontrollably, suffer pinched nerves and cramps in my back, and even lose the ability to verbally articulate. I simply can't physically do all the work necessary to run a business in the 21st century, unquote. And it is kind of a shame that happened to him,
Well, even if he was had to run the business, it sounds like even when it would have been like 46 years ago when he first started, it still would have been. Yeah, I don't think he could still run it, even if it was the way it was run, 46 years ago.
Yeah. But
with all that stuff.
Go ahead.
I just said with all that stuff that he's experiencing.
Oh, and I thought Meadow was about to say something, but
no.
Okay. Patterson II added, quote, while all the aforementioned things contributed, I ultimately can only blame myself. I made mistakes, I ordered too much, and kept hoping those pre-COVID numbers would return. Some days now don't even have a third of the revenue they did pre-COVID. It is very hard to stay in business losing over 50% of our revenue, unquote, which would hurt anybody. And again, this goes back to the issue I had before. You unfortunately get people conditioned to do this whole delivery style retailing, and then nobody wants to get out of their house, right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go out into the public. They think, I mean,
especially us nerds.
Well, I mean, and in Japanese culture, they have a word for it, right? I think you know the word, right?
Waifus?
No. That's not the word waifu. I'm trying to remember. It's not otaku. It's the other one for the shut-ins. Forgetting it.
Neat?
Well, neat is a global word that you can trace to Asia, and that's actually just a what's it called? A shorthand, not an acronym, abbreviation. Though I guess you could say it's an acronym because it makes a word, and that just means not in education, employment, or training.
Yeah.
That's how I heard it. JR says comic shops have never been professionalized, never became franchised with fixed management and professional marketing. Well, there are a few that have become franchised.
Hikimori, that's the term. A hikimori is the shut-in.
Hikimori.
There are a few that have become franchised. I know there's one or two big ones in the States. And I know here in Ontario, there's one in this area called Big B. Mm-hmm. I think it's Big B. And then there was also another smaller chain, Silver Snail, here in this area.
We had one that was franchising for a while here in Texas. It used to be Lone Star Comics way back, but when it started getting to the franchise, they were bought out and they became Wild West Comics. There used to be several Wild West comic locations in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but over time they had to retract. So they almost reverse franchised. And that was another thing I was going to bring up. They keep talking pre-COVID. Their pre-COVID was probably fine because they were already one of the few stores that were still around. So people's options became less and less. But we've been seeing the decline of comic book stores since around the start of this era. Like I remember reporting on this stuff back in 2015 that we were already losing comic book stores en masse. And over the last decade, we've just that COVID event where people crave efficiency. If they don't have to go out of their way to do something, they will get it delivered to them so they can spend that time doing something else instead. That was the last Jenga block pulled out of the tower.
My issue with that is you lose out on interpersonal skill development.
Communicate.
It's like for me now, Grant, I don't drive. I walk everywhere, and I've been known to walk some like the corner store for me is like a sixth of a mile, right? Takes me what about to get from my house to let's say what would be like my corner store area where there's like a 7-Eleven, a McDonald's, a liquor store, and a few other stores like that, Chevron, all that. Um, you know, I walk up there, I take a bag with me and, I'll get whatever, maybe I'll get my meals or get my energy drink, every morning, what have you. I walk to and from. There are people in my neighborhood who will still get in their cars. It only takes you like 15, 20 minutes to walk one way, right? So it's not that big of a time expense if you use it. You can burn off calories to and fro before, like for me, I go up and get my meals from 7-Eleven, right? So walking to and fro, I'm burning those calories off. Or even when I go get my energy drink, as I'm drinking it, I'm burning the calories off at the same time. But
some of them
people here who'll sit there and get in their cars just because it only takes 2 or 3 minutes or 5 minutes to drive up to the store.
Oh yeah, no, I know. Trust me, I walk everywhere. Even to Walmart is if I have to take all the turns, it's like half a mile a May, right? But I walk really fast because I walk everywhere. I'm a really fast walker. The average person probably take like 11 minutes to get there. I can get there in like 4 minutes and like 40 seconds. Like I've timed it because I've put like a song on while I'm walking and I'm there before the song's over.
Yeah. That's something I've started doing recently is walking a lot more places. I used to take the bus.
Well, I mean, Grant, I understand, like for me, I have been known to, walk up to an hour and a half away if I want to get somewhere, and I know not everybody may have the gumption, but if any place, I think any place if you can walk within an hour to get to a particular location, I think you should try to, it's like it's like
Well, it depends on what you do.
One thing, I mean,
but even like taking the bus is fine.
Let's say you just decide you want to go out. Maybe you want to go out to a pizza parlor and get some pizza, or go out and grab a bite to eat or whatever. Instead of hopping in the car, why not just walk there and just burn off?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna say like even public transportation's fine. Taking the bus, because one of the bigger problems isn't even that people aren't walking, is that they're doing everything they can to reduce walking to a minimum, right? Like they'll pull up right to the parking spot in front of the building if they can. While like we used to park in the back because my dad and we just never cared about walking across the entire parking lot. If you're taking the bus everywhere, you still have to do a lot of walking because there's only so many bus stations. Yeah. So even if you go to the bus station,
and I get that, and I'm not saying don't use it. Like buses are good for, let's say, further distances, okay, but I still think people should be increasing their walking and increasing.
I agree too.
Interact with people.
I just don't think most people who are taking the bus already have too little walking, especially depending where you go. Sometimes you have to walk up to like half a mile away from a bus station because there just aren't any stations off the main road.
Or a bus stop, you mean?
So JRX.
Yeah, stop station, anything.
So J.R. Exner here is saying, it's too bad comic store franchises never caught on. Franchises have access to sales data, demographics, census data, and professional marketing individual stores can't match.
Yeah. Well, the problem is that those franchises, most of them, like I said, I think there's a real big one in the States. I forget what it's called. That goes over several states. But most of the ones I know here, it's a few cities like Big B Comics. I think there's like 10 of them in Ontario.
Yeah. Everyone knows what they get at Subway, and Subway knows what products sell. Yeah. Anyways, continuing on with the article here. So he went on, quote, ignoring the writing on the wall that the world had changed permanently. And again, I don't like if that is the case. I don't like that at all. I really, I mean, it's almost like we're being groomed, for lack of a better term. We're being groomed to be a sedentary society, which is like
Well, I don't know if we're being
more power,
groomed for
more
that,
power. What was that?
right? I don't know if I'd like to use the term that we're being groomed for that. Like I said, people crave efficiency. I think this is something that was inevitably happening over time. And like, you don't even have to ask people. Most people are going to be fine with that because most people, they feel like they're doing too much as it is.
Hmm.
It's just like certain, like I like the term catalyst, like in a chemical reaction. Certain blocks from the Jenga tower have been pulled out and have sped things up even faster than they were already going.
Yeah. Again, it's like when I go to my neighbor, like the people in my neighborhood kind of know who I am. I see people walking every day. There are people out for their morning walks and what have you. I know my local retailers and stuff like that because like I said, I go get my energy drink almost every day. I go up to 7-Eleven. And I have some of my more like favorite restaurants like Tokyo Teriyaki and Sushi where I go to get my Asian food a lot. Where I'd like to go and eat. Like my ramen and teriyaki chicken bowl and all that. Just that idea, that experience of just going somewhere and just interacting with people. Like, even if all you're doing is hi bye and just talking to them as you're eating whatever, I think that's a key thing that we still need in our society. I think this whole idea of this need for efficiencies, I guess you're calling it.
I don't disagree at all.
Huh?
Like I don't disagree at all. Like I think it's a terrible trade-off because humans are herd creatures. We're social creatures. We crave each other, but that need for efficiency, as we've already become smaller units anyway. Like the family unit in average is much smaller than it used to be, right? Because we've already been over time naturally filing down to smaller units that also have more responsibility because when you were in a larger family unit, a lot of that responsibility was shared between people instead of loaded on the individual. A lot of people just already feel like they have too much to do in a day in modern society. So anything that can relieve that responsibility for things that they want otherwise, like maybe they enjoy reading comics, but because of how busy their schedule is, it's a chore to go out to get the comic, right? It's a horrible but natural side effect to the trajectory things have been on.
Yeah, but I think and again, just my point. I know you said you probably agree. The idea of going to the comic book shop and interacting with your comic book retailer, right, and having that connection over the comics for the comic book fan and stuff like that. I think that's another key element. One of the things I talk about a lot, and you guys probably know this because you guys have been co-hosts on a number of occasions. One of the things I talk a lot about is the idea of connection and really trying to immerse yourself into the comics themselves and like trying to become part of that world, right? And having people to share that experience with, I think just ultimately really enhances it. You get what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get it. It's just I understand how people are getting, right? Especially the younger generation. Because you have a lot of people who grew up on devices, right? Like they didn't spend a lot of time outside. And we're looking specifically Gen Z is not as bad as people say they are, but Gen Alpha, which are like the current teenagers, right? A lot of them grew up with an iPad in their hands, right? They already struggle when it comes to social interactions. A lot of them, when they're done from school or they're tired, even I see this with some Gen Z people, they come home. They don't even want to talk to their friends, right? A lot of them feel lonely, but they also feel drained just having a social interaction with people, let alone wanting to talk with a clerk at a store or anything like that. And I do believe it is a bad thing, but
see, that's just not me. That's just
but
not
we're
me.
looking at
I'm the type
where the market's going, right?
Yeah. Well, as you said, that's not you. And as Meadow was saying, that's more the current generation. That's what it's like. You're not from the current generation.
It's not me either, and I'm closer to them.
Yeah.
So anyways, getting back to the article here. Let's see. During COVID, the customers in nearly every business were trained to get everything they need online, which is that is the poison of that is the true poison of COVID right there. That to me personally, as a society, is the true poison of COVID.
Yeah.
Not the disease itself, it's the effect that the disease had on. I'm going to read that.
Well, because what the governments did,
During COVID, the customers in nearly every business were trained to get everything they need online. Now, and why the governments did that? Because it's a lot It's a lot easier to control people when they're not gathering together.
Yeah.
Like in Christian circles, we say you shouldn't you shouldn't forego the gathering, right?
Yeah.
The fellowship.
Yeah, and I do want to emphasize what was worse about what started happening. Like when I talk about that, COVID being a catalyst, what made it worse than the trajectory it was already on? Because we were already getting to the point that more people were ordering things online than not. But prior to COVID, let's take Domino's, right? Ordering your pizza. You could do all of the ordering part online without interacting with a person. But when they came and delivered your pizza, you still had to answer the door. A lot of times you still had to sign the receipt, even if you paid with a card. If you were paying with cash, you had to actually hand the cash. You had to talk to your delivery driver. Yeah. COVID era, though, they changed that. Now everything's getting delivered. It's not just your pizza. But it's the hands-free delivery, right? The no-contact delivery, where you already had to pay with card. There's no cash payments for most of these things. And they had to put your food down in front of your door and walk off. And they'll stay there. They'll make sure that you open the door to get the food, but you can never make contact with your deliverer. You never talk to a single person in this entire process.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, though, I think that's just that's just something that I think we just kind of screwed ourselves with. That's just my opinion.
No, yeah. I agree. I agree. It's not that we weren't already heading there, but that whole no contact thing, that was the real new part of COVID.
It pushed us further.
Yeah.
It accelerated what we were already on a path for.
Yeah. We all spent a year inside, and I didn't. I still got out, and
same here.
Some of the stores I did go to, even though they had to have the signs on the door, they didn't really, there were a few businesses that, didn't like try to force me to wear a mask or anything like that, which I'm grateful for. We all spent a year inside and learned that everything we wanted was available for delivery. And when the world did reopen, we all just kept ordering everything online, unquote. It's, and here's a theory I want to throw out there too. Now, granted, I know, like, I'm sure you guys heard about the Maine shooting, recently, but over the past few years, we have heard more and more about some of these mass shootings, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the left wants to say, no, we need to take everybody's guns away. but those of us who are more sensible on the right say no, it's more mental health issues. And I think this whole locking everybody down is more of a contributing factor to these shootouts than anything.
Well, I think it's general social instability, but this has a lot to do with that. Like it made social stability worse. But we've been on a socially our social trust levels have been lower than ever.
And you're just mulling over your disturbing thoughts and not having an outlet or anything like that. That's gonna drive people over the edge.
Yeah.
And of course, during these last couple of years, they've instilled the fear more and more.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a factor of health that people like to lump into specifically mental health that really it contributes to mental health, but it isn't. It's a separate factor, and that's if you actually look at humans as the herd creatures that we are. Health is on a triangle, right? Where one point is physical, like your physical body, which also contributes to mental health. One point is the mental, which also contributes to physical. Like they have to do with each other, but there's almost like these separate sections. And the other point is your social health, which also contributes to both of the others. And the others contribute to that too. If you're sick all the time, obviously you're not socializing with people, right? And this social factor does need to be treated like it's something different. This is actually almost the exact part of health that we see predates almost all of these massacres. Like even if you look at like the Columbine incident or anything like that, when people get into this really horrible state of bad social health, especially if they're already inclined to it, they start to do what is called antisocial behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, see, quote, I kept hoping over and over again that those customers would make their way back, but I lost too many customers. Where once there was one option for comics, now there are hundreds of places: Target, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, movie theaters, digital downloads, libraries, and countless others. Now, mind you, when I was a kid, even though I wasn't into comics as a kid, I was more into cartoons, right? You still at when we still had a Lucky's here, Lucky Supermarket. They did have a rack for comic books. Okay. Now some stores still have magazine racks, but they're and I remember even as I got older, when I got into high school and stuff, I get like some of the latest issues of like Pro Wrestling Illustrated, The Wrestler, and all that as well. But nowadays you don't even have those as much. I mean, you still have a lot of the, like parenting or like Time, all those magazines, but
well, I have to disagree. All those options I'm pretty sure all those options beforehand were available. It's just that people they were so used to going to the comic store to get the comics. Now they've been diverted into getting them this way.
Well, I don't think libraries always had comic books either.
Yeah, my libraries here have had comics for the last 40 years, 30, 40 years.
All right.
At least since the 90s for me. That's how I got into it.
Though.
I don't
think some I think some like the one you're talking about I have, but others may have only had them for 20 years. Some may have only had them for 5 years. So
well, I know
you were about to say something there.
Oh, I was saying at least since the 90s for me, my smaller town local library, that's how I got into comics in the first place.
Yeah. We got several libraries here in Hamilton, and they've all been here. But yeah, I would say pretty much all those things that they named there are things. But over COVID, you got people into a different pattern of how they use stuff, and trying to break people out of a pattern of how they do stuff. That's the thing. You've got them into a new habit. You've got to find a way to break them out to put them into the old.
Yeah.
Because we're creatures of habit. You get us in the habit of doing something a certain way, and
Well, I also wish there was an alternative when it came to digital downloads. Because personally, I really like digital comics. I like holding a physical comic in my hand too, but there is a certain convenience of digital comics. I can keep all of them on my phone, so I can read my comics wherever I am. Right? I can't carry like 50 floppies with me when I'm at the store or waiting in line or something. But I wish,
Or of course we can go to websites like I use like Read Comics Online
yeah.
or Comic Book Plus too. You know,
But I'm even talking about like in a legal way or whatever, like actually supporting the comic if you happen to like the comic. I like digital comics, and I guess because I read a lot of web comics when I was a teenager as well, that made me more inclined to like digital comics. But the thing is, they do keep you from the stores, and I wish we had more unified systems because there are no like real comic book systems. We're getting some now like global comics and stuff, but I can't go to the store and still hang out with people, talk to people at the store, and buy a digital comic from the store. Digital downloads are only direct sale, right? The stores don't have their own apps or anything like that. Digital downloads almost have to be anti-communal.
Yeah.
Like games, right? I can actually look at video games as the complete opposite. You can buy download codes at GameStop if you really want to for video games. You can still have the experience of going into GameStop, even if you just want to get a digital version of a game. You can't really do that with comics.
Yeah. At least not yet.
yeah. The thing is that it's kind of funny because we're almost getting to the point where we're being so conditioned. You know, our society is being so conditioned that we are going to end up like the Jetsons. You know, where people are going to be complaining about having a hard day at work for pushing buttons on a machine or computer for like 4 hours a day.
Well, they already do. There's people out there that already do that and complain.
But
Anyways,
anyway.
on with the next paragraph.
Well, let's see. We're already past the hour and a half mark, so we're gonna make 2 hours. I'm pretty sure, but this time, at least. Let's see. Oh yeah. So okay. Quote: Jeffries and Heidi Ho Comics or Heidi Ho went from 0 competition to 100 competitors in the blink of an eye. Unquote. Patterson asserted.
No, you just found out you had competition, and your people who were conditioned to use your competition during COVID.
Quote: I didn't want to admit that my health had left me in a place where running 2 businesses wasn't possible. Unquote. He continued, quote, having literally blinding pain at random times throughout the week makes changes difficult to implement. Everything slowed down when I needed to be working faster than ever. In fact, our biggest mistake was that we should have closed during COVID. I just didn't want to admit that Jeffries and Heidi Ho could not survive in the same version it was pre-COVID. Unquote.
I don't think he should have closed. I think that's probably the one thing that kept some of his customers, all the customers that he did have.
Yeah, but my thing is what he may be thinking too is maybe what he's considering doing now. Maybe he thought he should, maybe he, in the back of his head is thinking he should have did this, sooner. Maybe he should have did this at the dawn of COVID.
Or if he's somebody with all these health concerns, he should have been starting to train somebody to take over his business.
Yeah. Well, that's true too. Quote, Jeffries and Heidi Ho have always been more than stores to me, unquote. He said, quote, more than a business. They were a home to me and my employees. And I loved welcoming you all into our home every Wednesday. See, now that's it again, right there. That's the reason you have retail business like that, right?
Yeah.
That personal interaction. Let's see. That same passion that led us to keeping comic store open for 40 years was also the same passion that made me ignore the signs that the world had changed permanently. And again, I think if we have in fact changed permanently like that, I think that's a real
Uh,
painful
yeah.
change.
And especially in California and LA, to be, even more
Yeah.
precise, that really probably had a bigger effect too.
I mean, where I'm at, I'm kind of on the border between LA and OC, so
Yeah.
But and I told you that before, Rick, when you came out here. Jeffrey's Comics and Heidi Ho Comics will remain open until the end of the year when they will officially shutter. As noted above, now these are like I think the third and fourth comic book because there were a couple in New York, I believe, that closed a few weeks ago too. Because I covered a story on those as well. As noted above, business will attempt to transition. The business will attempt to transition into a delivery business with offerings to places of business as well as residential. Delivery is free if one has more than 10 books to be delivered. Quote, we will hold your poll list until you have 10 books. This can be from 1 week or multiple weeks, unquote. The shop explains. If you want the books delivered before you have 10 waiting, the delivery fee will be $5. Comics will be delivered on Wednesdays between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m.
Cool. Sort of making it like the new Comic Wednesday.
Yeah. What do you make of Jeffrey's Comics and Heidi Ho Comics shutting down?
Obviously, not good overall, but I think we've made a lot of our comments. Well, you were reading it.
Yeah, I mean, again, I just feel like with all the digitization, all the striving for convenience, I think we are losing something. I think it is a bad trade off. It is a significant bad trade off. To where the more human aspects of our society, the more the interactions with each other, the you know learning things, and practicing more things like empathy are going to suffer because we're not getting out and interacting with each other.
Yeah.
That's
Well, like something that became more popular as many bookstores started, like not just comic book stores, but bookstores in general started becoming more hobby shops. Is a lot of them started running dungeon nights where they would have like Dungeons and Dragon games on the weekends over there, and you could go to the back room and find a pickup game with a dungeon master or something. Which those are obviously not as popular as they were before COVID happened.
Well, yeah, I know what you're talking about because I know Yu-Gi-Oh is another one that was pretty popular that some stores would do as well.
Oh yeah, when I lived a town over, comic books store there was a chain of Wild West comics, and every time you went in, there were just like people on the tables in the middle playing like Yu-Gi-Oh. Specifically Yu-Gi-Oh. It was, even though Magic the Gathering is kind of like a bigger game, that store was dominated by Yu-Gi-Oh players.
Yeah, in the city of Whittier, which I'm near, there is a place they have up there. It's kind of and it's not Frankincense. That's another one. Frankincense was another place, but that's further out, like over in Point of Hills. But in Whittier, there is a place where a guy would have like you kind of have a warehouse type building, and it'd be like you'd have sport collectibles there, you'd have comics, you'd have the gaming as well. So so there were places like that. Again, I I think as a society we definitely need to be able to interact with each other. We can't allow ourselves to be shut in. And
Well, I also
I think we have to fight tooth and nail anytime a government, you know, threatens that. That's as much
yes,
about freedom as anything else.
but I'm also going to say I think this is furthermore just a symptom of what's been happening to comic book stores, particularly in general. Because if I go to my local half price bookstore, there's still tons of people in there at any given time of the day, some people even talking to each other. And if I look at some other countries, if I look at, say, Japan, where they have entire magazine stores, which are where comics are typically also sold with, as in their magazine stores. Or if I look at France, which is another one of the bigger comic markets, they sell all of their comics in their major bookstores. Some of them big enough that they have a floor just dedicated to their BDs.
Well,
The issue,
manga as a culture are I'd say manga for the Japanese culture are a much bigger are an even bigger cultural phenomenon than comics are here in the States.
but I don't think it used to be a bigger culture here in the state. I think that's the problem, right? I think the issue is that comics, instead of being part of major industries, like being in bookstores or places where magazines are sold, which even magazines now are sold in bookstores, so that's like our equivalent here.
Or smoke shops.
Yeah, the problem is that comics have reclused themselves to their own stores away from the public. So the niche of people that would buy them became smaller and smaller over time, instead of the other way around, where because manga are in magazine stores and everybody goes to magazine stores to get their mags and newspapers, right? It's a public place. It's like going to a
And I get
bookstore.
what you're saying because when we look on the historical comic retrospect, and we look back, and I've shown you that one site I use as my base site, right? They talk
Yeah.
about newsstands, right? There was a time when you can get, any kind of periodical, whether it be a newspaper, a magazine, or a comic. Well, back then they used to call them comic magazines. You can go to your local newsstand and get your periodicals, whether it be your daily newspaper or your monthly subscription to a magazine, whether that be like People or Time or a sports magazine.
Yeah.
Or a comic magazine.
Well, it's not exactly a newsstand, but heck, where I started getting my comics on a fairly regular basis was a variety store called Max Mill. That I was getting only Archies at the time. So whenever I went there and there was a new Archie, I'd grab it, and that was across from my grandparents' place.
And I do think it is a problem with our focus on floppies here, right? Because floppies do really good for a store that's dedicated to floppies. They were also fine back when like the spinner rack was a thing, but the market has moved away from that. A lot of stores, like main stores, like go to Barnes and Noble or something, they don't like the idea of stocking floppies because they're hard to take care of and they're hard to keep on the shelves, especially in a more dense store that kids can run around in and stuff. While books, hardcover, paperback, whatever, those are easy to keep on shelves. Trades, yes, and any type of paperback. They're easy to keep on shelves, right? They're easy to stock. They're easy to get in bulk. And the way that Japan doesn't deal with this is that instead of their issues coming out in floppy form originally, they come out in basically the old anthology form. They come out in a magazine with a bunch of other stuff. And then when there's enough for a tankobon, which literally just means trade paperback in Japanese, then they put the volumes of the trade paperbacks out. And that's also why manga does really well here, because it's right there in Barnes and Noble and it's inexpensive.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and some of the bigger bookstores like Barnes and Nobles do stock, the mangas as well.
Yeah, and they'll stock trades for DC and Marvel. Very few. It's a much smaller shelf, but also at any point in time, DC and Marvel only ever have so many trades to put up on the shelf.
Yeah. There's a bookstore downtown. I haven't been in it in a while to look, but they had last time when they had quite a few trades for DC and Marvel as far as I was concerned.
And the trades do better, honestly. But the problem is a lot of comics, because they're not selling in floppy form, don't run long enough to actually produce a trade.
Yeah. And of course, it doesn't help when these major corporate comics sit there and put out stories that people don't want to read either. That probably doesn't help things much either.
Could you imagine if DC was just like, we're failing, let's refocus the market, let's look what they're doing in Japan and do the same thing, and they just pulled most of their books off the shelf. Not all of them. Things like Superman, Batman, those names could run forever, but instead of having like 20 books running at the same time, they're just like, DC monthly. You pay us $20, you get a 200-page book that's got different DC stories in it, right?
Or
that would probably sell way better.
Yeah, that'd be one thing. Or going back to like what they did in the Golden Age there with those.
Yeah, or like what Shonen Jump still does on the weekly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe do a weekly trade or whatever.
Yeah. So, then that way, rather than having a whole bunch of feature books, you can still feature characters in those anthologies. You might have, like at the point where we're at, most of these superhero anthologies were like 7 to 8 features, right? In 1939.
Yeah.
And you'd have your lead feature at the very beginning. You'd have your primary backup in the back, and then you'd have like maybe 4, 5, 6 stories in between.
Yeah. And right now, Marvel is rebooting the Ultimate Marvel universe. They're starting with Ultimate Spider-Man #1, where weird story. Peter and MJ are going to be married in that universe, but they were already married before he became Spider-Man. He's becoming Spider-Man as an adult, so it's going to be like a completely different experience instead of becoming Spider-Man in school. Whatever. It's weird, but at least Peter and MJ are married. But that would be
universes is the answer, and that's not.
No, yeah. But what I'm saying is that would be
going to support the rebooting with the same kind of like same kind of story you've been doing the last few years of pushing agendas and all that. People are still not going to buy them.
It's besides my point though. Like what I'm saying is, if you were to take like a magazine method, and maybe the magazine's called Ultimate Marvel, right? Mm-hmm. And that was the lead title is the Ultimate Spider-Man. That title could subsidize 5 or 6 other titles that maybe aren't as good, right? People would buy the book for that. Maybe they would enjoy some of the other stuff, but they're buying it for that core title. In bigger magazines like how Shonen Jump works, you only actually need 2, or in their case, they always say they're big 3. You only need like 2 or 3 big titles that sell all of the other titles in the book. Right. And then they run long enough that you can have trades of those other titles. And people will check out the other stuff when they're reading these bigger books. And some people become attached and they go and they end up buying those trades afterwards.
Well, yeah, that was because one of the, I'll probably of course talk more about this when we get to this point, but back in the Golden Age, right? Where we're at right now, so when they decided to come out with the concept of the Justice Society in All-Star Comics #1, right? Now, eventually, it wasn't really fully developed until All-Star Comics #3. That was when they showed you backtracking to the very first meeting of the Justice Society. Now, initially, when the Justice Society was formed, Superman and Batman were in fact there at the meeting, but they were given honorary status because at that point in time, they had their own feature book. Superman had, the Superman magazine. Batman had the Batman magazine. All right. So when they debuted as Justice Society, so they were given honorary memberships. And then when other characters, like it was primarily the Flash and Green Lantern, who each got their own book, the Flash, their own quarterly features. In the Flash's case, it was All-Star or All Flash Quarterly, and Green Lantern was Green Lantern Volume 1, which featured Alan Scott. You know, they were then given honorary status, and of course, Flash got his feature, and then for one issue, Alan Scott became the chairman of the Justice Society, and then Alan Scott got his feature, and Hawkman became the chairman of the Justice Society, and then remained chairman for the remainder of the run. So, but
Cool.
again, we can get more into that when we get to that point. But and some of the other
Yeah,
stuff.
and what I'm saying is like the problem with like branching off into too many features, and back when there was a boom, right? I'm not even just talking about in comics, but also when there was a prosperity in people's wallets, when they had excess money to spend, it didn't matter that you had too many like feature bloat, because some people would spend extra. But the problem is the more features you make, the more niche the audience for each of those features becomes, the smaller it becomes, and the less people buy them. And that's also why we see them having to reboot a lot of titles over and over again just to get people to try to buy them, because people are like, oh, it's a number one. Maybe there'll be some resale value, which it turns out there was never really going to be resale value in comics after like maybe the 80s, because there are just too many of them. And these older ones were, I mean, there was too many back in the day, but because of fires and bad handling, there's just not that many copies of like the original number ones. And that's why they're worth as much as they are.
Yeah.
Number one Captain Marvel is never going to be worth anything.
And the fact that, like Action Comics number one was 40 or 50 years old or at that point.
Yeah. It's 40, 50 years old. Plus, it's like how many actually survived because of all the fires that happened back then, or people didn't think they'd be valuable, so they didn't bother taking care of them or anything, right?
Yeah.
That's never going to happen now. There's too many features. Not enough people care about most of the individual features. So not even to talk about how bad the writing has become in most comics in general here in the West. That like this is not a problem that the Japanese market deals with, because they deal with selling everything to people in bulk in these magazines. They don't have a problem with like this feature bloat. And if a comic stops running, right? Let's say they only had the year in Shonen Jump as a side comic. They only ever got 12 issues out for that year. That's fine. You can make a single tankobon of all 12 of those issues and sell it and never have to worry about it again. And the people who like that can just get it in that single volume, right?
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about the sixth issue Captain Marvel, because it's going to get rebooted again, is not long enough to actually do a volume of, so it will never exist in trade paperback form.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is what was I saying? Thinking about for the comics. Oh, I can't think of what I was thinking about. I was gonna say something. Not with the trades or whatever. Oh, with the issue. Oh, I know. Most of these people that were buying these are buying them for the number ones. Well, you gotta wait 40 or 50 years before, if it's gonna even possibly be worth money.
I also undersold that.
It's not going to be worth money in like 2 years from now.
That should be 12 times 4 chapters if it was running in Shonen Jump, because they do it weekly.
Yeah, well,
so that could be several volumes just from running for the year and then getting canceled. Unlike here, where because they do it full color and there's so much else that goes into it, you only get an issue for a title once a month.
Yeah.
Well, I was kind of hoping Tim would have joined us tonight, because I know he had quite a few things to say about what we read Friday. And I know, Rick, you came in kind of late. I don't know if you went back and rewatched the show, but so this past Friday when I had Tim on, we went over Miracle Comics Volume 1.
Thank you.
Issue 1, and Rocket Cons Volume 1, Issue 1. They ran for 4 and 3 issues respectively, but they were kind of sporadic. They were from Hillman periodicals. Hillman, the most famous character and book, was Airboy, as we learned as I was doing the initial research. Airboy, the character, and Airboy comics were published by Hillman Periodicals there. But so the three features we looked at, from the one from Miracle was Sky Wizard, who is basically a scientific hero. And you know, he had some interesting concepts, like an element called rubberum or rubberium, some kind of metallic rubber type thing. And I know Tim was all over that.
Metallic rubber.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, go back if you really want to hear what unfortunately, Tim's not here to talk about it himself, but I recommend you guys go back and watch the show again, and just look at what some of the things we talked about. But you guys will definitely pick up on, again, another example of comic book writers back in the golden age not really knowing a whole lot about science, or having their own real sense of science fiction, as it were. You had Rocket Riley, who was basically focused on a young hero who was an assistant to a scientist who was engaged to the scientist's daughter. And you had a couple bad guys tag along as they basically ended up on a stranded rocket, or on a runaway rocket that would be traveling the solar system. And in their first adventure, I think, to Mars, they ended up tangling with a bunch of octopus men.
Okay.
And then you had Red Roberts, the Electro Man, who was framed for murder as he was trying to uncover corruption in his local city. And he was basically, as he was being electrocuted, and not only did he survive the electric chair, but he gained electric-based powers. Let's see. What are some of the other interesting things that were? Going back to the Sky Wizard feature, of course, we got another example of another common theme back in the golden age: better superheroing through chemistry. As this guy had a formula he developed to increase his physical strength, and he had kind of a strange formula where he'd be saying something like this chemical and this chemical, but they were like in numbers, which of course was reminding me of Johnny Quick. And I don't know if you guys know who Johnny Quick is.
I do.
Yeah, Johnny Quick, who would recite a math problem to our math equation in order to access the speed.
Gain super speed.
Right. So, some interesting stuff, and I picked up some editorial issues. Also, sometimes in terms of where they would at times put the tales from some of the speech bubbles didn't always line up the way they should have. So, again, go.
That's okay. That's a problem I see with people nowadays.
Yeah, but I really caught one real quick on one situation. You got to go back and see it, though. But anyways, with that, I was able to give at least some of my impressions. I was hoping, again, Tim would have been here to give his. I know he would add quite a bit more to say on a lot of that stuff. But anyways, so this Friday, of course, I'm going to have RJ on, as we're going to be going over a book that went on sale from Novelty Press in December 1939, Target Comics Volume 1, Issue 1. And then next Friday, as far as I know, you're still on for next Friday, right, Metal?
I think so.
That's the 10th. So, and next week, of course, we'll be going over books that went on sale from Quality Comics back in December 1939, Feature Funnies and Smash Comics, which will mean we'll be looking at The Clock, Doll Man, The Invisible Hood, and Black X. And then, of course, the following Friday, the 17th, that's when I have you still planned, right?
Yeah, I'm obviously supposed to be on there. It's a tentative date.
We'll be finishing up December of 1939 then which we'll be looking at comics that went on sale from Standard Comics. We'll be looking at Thrilling Comics Volume 1, Issue 1 from that.
Well, that is good.
And if you guys haven't seen it already, I've already posted information up for December. What we're gonna our coverage for December of 19 or our coverage for January 1939, which will start on December 1st, which I'll have RJ back. As I mentioned before, I'm gonna take the 23rd and 24th off of broadcasting. Because 23rd is Thanksgiving here in the States, 24th Thanksgiving Friday, rather than skip a day and then come back the next day. I just figure I'll just end the week on Wednesday there, take the extra couple days off.
But you'll still be doing the Sunday that week, or?
Yeah, I'll be doing both Sundays. The one prior to Thanksgiving, the one the following Sunday. So I now maybe around, because what I just realized is Christmas Eve is on a Sunday this year, so I'm still deciding if, and so is New Year. Usually New Year's holidays we usually will do, and I've done like Christmas Eve and night, broadcast before. Well, I think last year I didn't have to do Christmas Eve because it was on a Saturday, and I normally take Saturdays off. And I don't even know if I was doing Sundays yet.
Oh yeah, Christmas Eve is the 24th.
Is the 24th, which is on a Sunday this year. So,
yeah.
I mean,
it's hard to say whether you should take both those weeks off.
Well, I don't take New Year's off because New Year's people will still want to come on and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But because I mean, Christmas Eve we can talk about Christmas cartoons, Christmas specials, whatever else is going on. Anyways, we're actually just past 2-hour mark. So I think it'd be a good time to start wrapping things up. What do you guys say?
That sounds good.
All right. So with that, today is Sunday, October 29th, 2023. So why don't we go ahead and take a look back at this weekend? Neat history. History! 1993, 18, and 2008. Okay, so first off, I'm going to head back to to 15 years ago yesterday. On yesterday's date, 15 years ago yesterday, back in 2008, Walt Disney's Tinkerbell, which is an American animated film and the first installment in the Disney Fairies franchise, premiered in movie theaters on yesterday's date. Back in 2008.
That wasn't a straight to DVD. I didn't even realize that was in theaters.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Tinkerbell is a 2008 American animated film and the first installment in the Disney Fairies, produced by Disney Toon Studios. Is about Tinkerbell, a fairy character created by J.M. Barrie in his 1904 play Peter Pan, or The Boy Who Couldn't Grow Up, and featured in the 1953 Disney animated film Peter Pan and the 2002 sequel Return to Neverland. Unlike Disney's two Peter Pan films featuring the character, which were produced primarily using traditional animation, Tinkerbell was produced using digital 3D modeling. The film was released on DVD and Blu-ray by Walt Disney Home Entertainment on October 28th, 2000. Okay, so I guess it was maybe direct to video then, direct to DVD. No, actually it wasn't, because there was a box office here. Box office 9.2 million. Budget of 50 million. 9.2 million was the box office. So on yesterday's date, 15 years ago, the Walt Disney's Tinkerbell premiered in movie theaters.
Did it release on DVD and Blu-ray the exact same day it came out in movie
I
theaters?
guess.
No. So that's when it was released on DVD and thing on this date. That's the
Yeah, but
same
when you
way.
scroll down in the side box, it just had the same date, like right above the box office.
Yeah.
Right, it said release date. and
Release
it's
date.
the same one.
Yeah, so I guess the box office just means how much it made in stores when it was released to home video.
Or it could have been released.
Yeah,
Because
maybe
that's
they just didn't think it was going to do very well, so they just put it out at the same time.
Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
getting ready to move on to the next piece of niche history here. Moving ahead, should we clear that? Moving ahead to 2018, 5 years ago yesterday, on yesterday's date, 5 years ago, WWE held its first ever all female pay-per-view event, Evolution, 5 years ago yesterday. Basically, it was the only, it was a pay-per-view in which only the women were featured.
Yeah, get that. Now the question is, did it make any money?
It probably did, I think. Let's see.
Are you asking if people would pay money to see scantily clad women feel up each other?
Let's see. Evolution 2018 was a women's professional wrestling pay-per-view event and WWE Network event produced by the WWE for their Raw, SmackDown, NXT UK brands. It took place on October 28, 2018 at the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Uniondale, New York. It was the first pay-per-view in WWE history to be comprised entirely of women's matches. 3 of the 4 WWE Women's Championships will be defended at the event. It will also feature the finals, the 2018 Mae Young Classic. So,
I think I saw in the preview one of the few wrestlers I actually follow, which is Kanako Urai, Asuka.
Yeah. So in the main event saw Ronda Rousey, who WWE just recently cut all ties with. She actually was at a Lucha Underground event recently, as I reported, as I saw on the WrestleMania report the other day. But Ronda Rousey defeated Nikki Bella to retain the WWE Raw Women's title back then. Becky Lynch defeated Charlotte Flair in a last woman standing match to retain the WWE SmackDown Women's Championship. Shayna Baszler defeated Kairi Sane for the NXT Women's Championship. Now, Kairi Sane, who's currently been in Japan, there's been some reports that by the end of the year here, she might be back in the WWE. So Sasha Banks, Bayley, and Natalya defeated the Riot Squad of Ruby Riot, Liv Morgan, Sarah Morgan. Ruby Riot is going by the name Ruby Soho over in AEW. Tony Storm, who is currently in AEW, defeated Io Shirai in the 2018 Mae Young Classic Tournament Final. Tony Storm has already been a 2-time AEW Women's World Title. And Io Shirai, I think now, is the current Women's Championship, but isn't going by the name Io Shirai anymore. She's going by the name Io Sky. She's part of Damage Control faction. Nia Jax won the historic Women's Battle Royal for a future Women's Championship match. Trish Stratus and Lita defeated Mickie James and Alicia Fox. The dark match was Rhea Ripley defending the WWE United Kingdom Women's Championship over Dakota Kai. So that all happened 5 years ago. And I think the Evolution pay-per-view still happens on a yearly basis. It's just all women matches.
Yeah. should see whether it's still running or whatever 5 years later.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is, but we can probably I can probably double check. Oh, maybe not. I thought it was, but because they only have 18 here. I guess maybe not. Okay, I thought this would have actually become. I thought I heard it did become a. But then, let's see. Maybe they have Crown Jewel, which event gallery. Oh, but that may not be. Well, I guess not. Then I thought they. I would have thought they would have had.
Yeah, they only had an attendance of just over 10,000, almost 11,000.
See, 2019. They have an evolution. Would have probably been around the same time, which would have been up. Yeah, so I guess not. I guess not then, because
Guess it didn't make it. It didn't make enough money.
probably I guess. Um, I thought they actually did do more though, but I guess I was wrong. But that was like the first ever all female
Yeah,
for the WWE. I mean, there have obviously been others like Women of Wrestling back in the early 2000s here actually did have a pay per view, and you have had like women's wrestling organizations over the years, like even going back to the 80s. Glow was one of the first. Glow was one. You also had LPWA. Um, you know, I think Wow Women of Wrestling started out in the early 2000s. They're still going. Um, anyways, now moving on to last piece in each history, which actually happened today, 30 years ago. On this date, 30 years ago, back on October 29th, 1993, the 25th issue of Harbinger from Valiant Comics went on sale on this date 30 years ago today. On this date 30 years ago today, Harbinger from Valiant Comics went on sale on this date. So it was Armageddon, 35 pages of story in there, written by Maurice Fontenot, penciled by Howard Simpson, inked by Gonzalo Mayo, lettered by Rob Johnson and Jose R. Albello, colored by Maria Beccari and Navro. So on this date, 30 years ago today, the 25th issue of Harbinger went on sale on this date 30 years ago today. So with all that being said, do you guys enjoy the show tonight?
yeah.
Yeah, actually, I did have a follow up from one of your niche things, real quick, since we were wondering about it. Tinkerbell's theatrical release was actually September 19th, 2008, and then the DVD was October 28th. I don't know why the wiki didn't have that, but it took me quite a bit of digging to find when it actually came out in theaters.
Well, I'm sure you would have probably had to go. You could have probably gone to IMDb and found the information too. But anyways, so with that, so thank everybody for being here tonight. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. It looks like, okay, so, I'm sorry. I forgot one more thing. We'll start with, we'll go kind of reverse order here. Start with Metal, then go to Rick, and then I'll finish up. If you guys want to do your outro, share any links, talk about any projects you're doing, maybe if you guys got anything you're doing this week, but if you guys want to just do your outros real quick before we head out, and then I'll wrap things up after you guys are done. So we'll start with Metal and go to Rick, and then I'll finish up.
Yeah. Well, it's Halloween on Tuesdays, so being a Tuesday, we're still going to be doing the Vomitorium. You can come over there, hang out with us. Maybe I'll try to make sure the topics are kind of Halloween themed if there's enough of them out there. Maybe we'll just tell stories or something. I'm not sure, but I'm going to try to at least bully somebody to being on, even if Marsupial can't be there, or I'll just tell ghost stories for an hour and a half by myself. Who knows? But we'll be running regardless.
Well, if you want, you can send me a link, and if I can find the time, I'll even try to pop on there. Or well, actually, you usually go through your Discord too, right?
Yeah. But I don't know. Who knows? I might even bully one of my former co-hosts to being on there, and we'll just talk about ghosts and stuff for the whole night. I don't even know yet, but we'll see.
Well, you'll figure it out, right?
Yeah, I'll figure it.
Yeah, hopefully I will be able to watch or come in for a few minutes.
Anyway, anything else you'd like to mention, Metal, before we move on to Rick?
No, I'm good.
All right, Rick, you're up.
I'm not going to share any links, but just because most everybody here knows my channel, Cross Comics, here on YouTube. Also, my website, crosscomics.ca, and my Twitter, Cross Comics. Just keep a watch out for me coming back in the next couple weeks from a new location.
All right. And with that, guys, I thank everybody for being here tonight. Don't forget, we're going to be back here tomorrow night with our start of our niche news week. Of course, and of course on Thursdays we go over the independent the ICS, the Indie Comic Showcase over on Bleeding Full. Might want to check that out. We also this Friday, RJ Carter will be joining me, as I mentioned earlier, as we will be looking at a comic that went on sale in December 1939 from the company known as Novelty Press, Target Comics Volume 1, Issue 1. It's got a very interesting cover, too, to it. Bit of a target on it. We went over Hillman this past week, so, I hope you guys are, even if you're not catching the live show, you go back and watch the shows, and learn a thing or two about what, how people perceive things back in the day. And with that, I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.